I'm about to finish this book called Miracle Creek by Angie Kim. Like, by about, I mean, maybe in 20 pages I'll be done. But I need to talk about this book briefly before I finish it so I could give final thoughts. But this is something I never thought I would come across in my life. Like, it's not something I would pick directly from a shelf at Barnes & Noble or wherever I get my books, right? And just for context, this is my second time reading a book from Book of the Month. So again, we have to draw the scoreboard at the end of this video. However, I'm going to give you a brief synopsis, but I'm just going to scale through it really quickly. But this book is based around a hyperbaric chamber. I believe I said that correctly. Hold on. A hyperbaric oxygenation chamber, which in a very rough, dumbed down explanation is basically where people who have some outstanding disabilities or issues, where they go to get a lot more oxygen than they would like everyone else that's just breathing it through the air and through the trees. And in most cases, in this book in particular, I don't know about real life, some of these things either get healed or are just advancing to a better level. Now, one thing that I love, that you guys know I love for anyone who watches my channel, I love when books go through different points of views, right? And we're reading from like maybe 5 or 4 POVs, and that might sound overwhelming, but I promise you, when you get into this book, it does not. So basically what happens is, in the beginning of this book, there's an explosion, and 2 people die in this oxygenation chamber, basically, and it's an autistic child and the mother of another autistic child. And this book is based around the trial of the child that died, and everyone thinks it's his mother, Elizabeth, who committed the murder. Now, starting this book, I was thinking, okay, well, we know what happened. Why are we going through this whole story? However, because I probably said it's, it takes place, during the trial, it sounds boring. It's amazing. So it's basically a courtroom drama. And while the courtroom drama is happening, you have these other characters from their point of views where they're looking and experiencing the trial, but then they start like thinking back and remembering what has happened in the past and how everything just led up to said explosion. So the trial is taking place a year after said explosion. So everyone has had time to like either debrief or just thaw out or just think about what really happened and process the whole thing. Now, you're gonna go through this book wondering who the fuck blew up this chamber. And right now I don't know. And I'm 20 pages in, I don't know. And it's so exciting because like every other chapter, there's someone who just has a motive to be a shitty person. And I will say, this book makes me feel a lot better for being the kind of person I am internally. Like, how, let's be honest, we all have like thoughts and opinions that we just can't really voice out loud. This book just makes me feel a lot better. And I will say, I can't really relate to most characters in this book because they are parents of autistic kids and autistic children. And in certain chapters, so we have Teresa, we have Kit, who was the mother that died in the explosion, and we have Elizabeth as well, who's on trial for the murder of her son, allegedly. And you're just going through like the flashbacks and the present trial, seeing what they are thinking. And there's a certain part in this book where Teresa, one of the mothers, she basically had her daughter, and until her daughter was 5 years old, she was doing okay, as okay could be. She was a basic child, and something happened while Teresa was on a work trip, and she comes back and her child is disabled, basically. And again, remember I said this chamber is for people who just have some certain disabilities. So an autistic kid, a disabled child, and so on and so forth. So, and she's thinking to herself, she's wondering, because something happens where another daughter, is in a coma from the explosion, and she's friends with the mother, and she's thinking, if this child doesn't get out of this coma, I will be sad. However, the mother can then understand that maybe your kids will not be all right, maybe your kids will not survive. And on the other hand, she's thinking, what would have happened if, while her child got paralyzed, what if she didn't make it? And she's thinking about how she might just be a bit relieved because she wouldn't have to worry about going for, different sessions and going for different therapy sessions and like the chamber, like every day, of the week, spending lots of money. She's thinking about a lot of things. And she has other kids as well. And you're thinking about this process like, damn, it's really hard, it's really tough and relatable at the same time. So I will say, you have to read this book knowing that I don't think you're going to gel or connect with any character in particular. However, there are lots of scenarios and there are lots of thoughts, decisions, ideas, and you're like, oh wow, it's very human. I feel like this book just shows how human people can be, and just shows how like, yes, we might be flawed, but like sometimes when you think some things, it might sound bad. Like when you say something, just, I don't know, let's just imagine you just say something out of the blue, whatever it is, right? on instinct, someone who might hear like, oh my gosh, why would you say that? But like reflecting and thinking about it, especially with these characters who have had like a year to think about a lot that has happened and been said, just from the chamber and from different mothers, you're like, oh wow, makes sense. And what even makes this, because literally, let me tell you something, while I was reading this book, my tagline was, and the plot thickens. Because every chapter, I'm like, well, here we go. Just when I thought I knew who it could be or what was happening, something else just happened and it was amazing. It wasn't throwing me off. And except for these main characters that the book revolves around in a way where there's like, parents, and there's also an adult as well who is participating in the chamber who, his story is different, I'll tell you as, at the ending of this video. But there are also like people on the other side who are protesting, saying that like, why would parents put their kids through this kind of process and through this like oxygenation chamber, like it's devilish, it's whatever, and they're basically out to get these parents and do anything to stop them. And they are also, in my mind, and in the reader's mind, but not in this particular trial, they are potential suspects as well. Everyone is a fucking suspect, I promise you. But I will be back when this book is done to kind of take you through my notes and just highlight some things that I wrote down while reading this book, because it's a really, really good experience, and I just want to shower and finish this book. But yeah, I don't know why I suddenly felt compelled to talk about this right now after a run. I could have waited till I took a shower, but yeah. I'm done. I'm done with Miracle Creek. I genuinely don't know what to say. Not like I'm lost for what, I guess that's the definition. I'm basically lost for words. But number one, this book did not end how I expected it to, or not much of how I wanted it to, but I was just expecting it to go a certain way, and I was expecting to get a lot of information, but then it was just put in a bit of a summary while the book was just having like its ending sequence. And one thing about me, I really enjoy an ending sequence. And the chapter before the last, it was very heated. A lot of things were revealed. You're going to find out a lot more about the process of the murder that happened in the whole book, and the perpetrator, and like what exactly happened and who else had a hand in said murder, voluntarily or otherwise. And it just keeps, like a crescendo, just keeps going up, and then the next chapter happens and just like goes down. It's not disappointing, but it was a bit underwhelming. However, this book is fucking spectacular. I feel like I'm so proud of myself for picking this book up to read it. I'm proud of the author. I realized this was the author's first book, and I made a weird TikTok where I was like, the nerve, how could your first book be so good, so detailed? You could tell there's a lot of research. It's amazing. Now, I will say off the top of my head, because I didn't want to like plan how I would I wanted to like talk about this for like a pure reaction. There were lots of like themes and real life scenarios and lessons that were intertwined into this book that I just really appreciate. So off the top of my head, there was this is something dangerous about like reading from different POVs. There was a section, there's a married couple who you read from their point of view as well in this book, and the guy, steps out of his marriage and sleeps with someone else. However, the person he sleeps with is underage to him. It's like a lot younger to him. And while you're reading, you probably might assume, like the way I did, like it was a consensual relationship and it was just like an affair or whatever. But then towards the ending of the book, where you just keep getting a lot more information on a need to know basis, you realize like, oh, what you thought happened in the book. Because in the beginning, they hints at this thing that Matt, the guy who stepped on his married, does, and it's like, oh, you just think, oh, okay, well, did he cheat with like a teenager or a high schooler, or like what really happened? And then in the middle, you're realizing, okay, wait, he did not cheat, like something happened. Was she aware? Like a lot of breadcrumbing in a good way. You're just finding out on a need to know basis. And at the ending, where the perpetrator who was involved in this murder, you see how like her character progresses and how you're just finding a lot of things about her from like everyone's point of view, and it's spectacular. I really enjoyed it. I will say I was very, dare I say, the revolution and just finding out about like some other things like the affair, quote unquote, kind of shook me, because I was so resolved in what I thought it was. And then when I found out about, when I found out about what happened towards the ending, I'm like, oh, now my brain has to kind of rewire and like connect a lot more dots, which is interesting and a bit frustrating in a different way. Something else that was really interesting top of my head was there's there's an Asian couple, immigrant family, that's like the core of the story. And you notice how, slights, what's the word? Slight context. They had moved here, but she moved with her daughter before the husband came, and I think he moved 5 years after. So she was a lot more established in the US, and even when he came, he asserted dominance. And her daughter kept telling her, "We've been here longer. Why can't you?" Because even before they moved, she was like, "You don't want to move. Why do you keep doing everything Dad says?" And then even when they moved, the daughter's like, "Okay, we've been here a while. Why do you like keep letting him run over you?" And you see that theme play out through the wife's head throughout the book, where she wants to make some decisions, wants to say some things and voice some opinions, and she's thinking, "Well, he's the husband. You know, he moved us here." It's a lot of contradictory opinions and thoughts, and I thought it was really, really interesting as well to read. What was something else? Oh, one phenomenal thing as well. So I talked about how in the beginning, there are a lot of thoughts and ideas that these characters have. And you're thinking, that's fucked up, but I get it, right? And I love how they were able to, I don't know if they did this or if it's just my brain doing this for me, but there's a place where some parents are kind of, I'm not going to spoil the whole thing for you, but parents are basically sharing thoughts on some children they have and how they wish the children, you know, didn't need to be this way, or probably didn't need to be alive, or how their lives would be a lot better if their children were not, you know, in their lives, basically. And it was then likened as well to people who don't have any money in the US or wherever, and they make do with what they have, and they are so content and so happy, in likened to people who have everything and they just can't seem to find like a glimmer of hope or happiness, or just like being content because they're either trying to like keep up their money, or they're trying to like, you know, work on the next best thing that's going to give them like a serotonin boost. It was so amazing to kind of see, differentiate, and kind of like notice the similarities that the author was trying to do in this book. This is an amazing book, okay? Pick it up. I will say, I remember when I first started the book, I'm like, what have I done? Like, what are these first 2 chapters? Because the prologue starts off with a bang. Like, you know, it basically, I think the prologue is called, what's it called? This is how the book starts, the incidents, right? And then you get to like the first 2 chapters and you're like, okay, wait, what's going on? And then you realize it gives you the incident, but then it goes to the present. It's phenomenal. I enjoyed it. And Book of the Month, you've done it again. This is the second book I'm reading from Book of the Month, and I am thoroughly impressed. I will say this book is so different to the last book I read, and I'm really, really enjoying how the themes are just, this book is just amazing. I really enjoyed this, you know, and I think because I'm like courtroom dramas and just like thrillers and intellectual challenging books or movies or whatever, they just really excite me. So maybe that's why. If you think that everything I've said would be a good pick for you, pick this book up. It's really, really amazing, and it's really a diverse cast in a way. And diverse not in the sense of like what you think of when you hear diverse. I just mean so many complex characters, and just like diving into everything is delicious. I would say one thing though, I was not as content because, well, again, I wanted to see the resolution of some characters from their point of views and not from one person's point of view. So it just felt like we did an amazing job throughout the whole book, and then towards the ending, it felt almost like, hurry up and submit this book. We have to like, you know, turn it in for publishing. And then you just saw like everyone's resolution in, you know, through the lens of one person, which isn't inherently bad. It just felt like a very calm ending sequence. But I really wanted to see how these people's lives kind of like resolved or dissolved or just ended from their eyes and from their point of views. However, I say all that to say, it's an amazing book. I'm not content for my own reasons, but like, it's not even comparable to how great this book is. But yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Dami. If you would like to come back when I'm talking about another book or more books, feel free to comment, subscribe, and share this with someone who you think should read a book that is sort of a comfort zone, because this book is not out of my comfort zone, but it's very different from everything I have on my shelf currently, and I think it's amazing, and I think you'll find it amazing. So if you've read this and you don't like it, tell me why. But if you read it and you loved it, tell me why as well. But yeah, see you next time. Bye-bye.